Japanese scientists have just achieved an insane new world record for internet speed. In Southeast Asia's Coral Triangle, researchers have discovered 2 new animal species. And in the US, doctors have just performed the nation's first fully robotic heart transplant. Hi guys, I'm Freddy, and this is part 1 of our monthly dose of good news. Let's start off with good news in Arizona, where the governor has just erased $500 million in medical debt for thousands of people. The most recent numbers show Arizona has around $2.4 billion in unpaid medical bills. And like everywhere in the USA, healthcare is pretty expensive in Arizona. To give you an idea, just calling an ambulance can cost you about $3,000. Last year, Democratic Governor Katie Hobbs launched an initiative to help with this. She pledged to erase $2 billion worth of medical debt for up to 1 million people in Arizona. And recently, she began fulfilling on that promise. Hobbs has announced that $429 million in medical debt has been wiped out for more than 352,000 people. But how did she do this? Well, she's collaborating with a national non-profit called Undo Medical Debt. This charity buys medical debt from hospitals. But instead of collecting it, they forgive it. For example, if someone has $10,000 in medical debt, the hospital might sell it for only $100, because they know they will never get the full amount back, and this way they can at least recover a little bit. The non-profit buys this debt with donated money, and instead of collecting it, they erase it. That means a $100 donation could potentially wipe out $10,000 in medical debt. And it's also been a good month for Arizona's neighbor California, where solar has become the largest source of energy. California is famously a pretty sunny place. Yet for the past decade or so, natural gas has been the top source of power. Over that same period though, solar has slowly been catching up. And now it's finally taking the top spot. Across the year, solar power currently makes up 33.9% of the state's electricity, while gas only contributes about 33.3%. The main reason for this is the installation of high-capacity batteries that are able to store more solar power than before. Battery storage has also been a focus in India, which has already hit 50% of its 2030 energy goal. To see why this is big and good news, let's go back just 3 years, to 2022. That year, India failed to achieve its aim of installing 175 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity. In response, they began heavily investing in solar and wind power and battery technology. And they also set a new target. By 2030, they want to have 500 gigawatts of clean power. And now, just 3 years later, they've already built up to around 240 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel generation. Which means India is back on track. And if they continue this trend, there's a good chance they will reach their 2030 goal. Now let's talk about how Japanese scientists have broken the world record for internet speed. And before I show you how they've not just broken it, but absolutely smashed it, I quickly want to thank DeleteMe for sponsoring this video. This tool is very important for all of us, so just hear me out for a minute. You probably already know that lots of your personal data is collected online. These so-called data brokers are making a living by buying and selling your information. And the crazy thing is, literally anyone can buy your personal details such as name, phone number, address, and pretty much everything else you shared online. This probably also explains why you sometimes receive spam emails or even spam calls. In some bad cases, people even get harassed, stalked, or their online identity gets stolen for financial scams. But the good news is that you literally have the right to protect your personal data. DeleteMe scans through the web to find and remove your personal data, to keep you safe. I have actually personally used DeleteMe for quite a while already, and here you can see how DeleteMe shows me exactly where my data like name, address, phone number, and even relatives and property value has been found and removed. So in my case, DeleteMe continuously monitors over 400 data listings every month, and they keep removing my information if needed. So, if you also want to remove your personal information from hundreds of data brokers, you can now get 20% off DeleteMe plans. Just go to joindeleteme.com/goodnews and use promo code GOODNEWS at checkout. And now, let's see how Japan just broke the world record for internet speed. The previous record for internet speed, set last year, was around 50,000 gigabytes per second. But scientists from Japan just achieved an insane 125,000 gigabytes per second. That would even allow you to download Warzone in less than 1 hour, or the entire internet in less than 4 minutes. It's also 4 million times faster than the average speed in the USA. So, how did they do it? The secret to their success is a new type of fiber optic cable. It is about as thick as a normal fiber optic cable, but the big difference is that it is 19 times more powerful. That's because it contains 19 separate fibers packed into one. To understand why this is so quick, let's briefly talk about how these cables actually work. They transmit data using LED light. After a certain distance, however, the signal weakens. When this happens, a device called a fiber optic amplifier boosts the signal. But it is really difficult to do this with multiple fibers. That's because it can lead to interference, which weakens the signal. But the cable used for the new world record does not experience this. And that's because a newly invented smart amplification system removes all interference. Data traffic is obviously expected to massively rise in the coming years. And this little cable could be the key to keeping up with the future demand. Next up, we have some medical good news. And we start off with a kind of strange one, because scientists have just beamed light through a man's head for the very first time ever. This sentence may have hurt your brain, so allow me to explain. It all has to do with non-invasive brain imaging. Brain imaging is a crucial tool we use to diagnose and monitor neurological conditions. At the moment, the best technology we have for this are MRI machines. They can help us to see what's going on in the deepest layers of our brain. The thing is though, these machines are super expensive and require a lot of space. A smaller, cheaper and more portable alternative is this device. In a typical procedure, the patient attaches this device to their head and it lasers invisible near-infrared light into their brain. The light detects neurological activity, which is then represented on a 3D, heat-sensitive map of the brain. The main problem with this method, though, is that it can only analyze a few centimeters down before losing range. This means it can easily miss crucial information. Scientists in Scotland, however, have just made promising steps towards improving this method. They have been able to shine light from one side of the brain to the other. They did this by making the infrared light stronger and improving how light was detected when it reached the other side of the head. Now, the process was by no means perfect. Only a tiny amount of light managed to penetrate through the complete mixture of the brain. That's besides the point though. The exciting bit is that this technique can go even deeper than previously thought. And if further developed, it's possible that one day big high-cost MRI machines could be totally replaced. From a world's first to a national first, because US surgeons have completed the first ever heart transplant using robotics. Getting a heart transplant is probably the most invasive type of surgery. That's because doctors have to split the breastbone to gain access to the heart. And this means the chest wall of the patient is pretty much destroyed in the process. Thankfully though, a much more delicate approach has been developed with the help of robotics. And this was proven by a first successful case in Saudi Arabia in 2024. And now, it was also performed for the first time in the USA on a 45-year-old patient. The procedure involved an advanced surgical robot called an advanced Da Vinci system. And first, the human operator controlling it made a small, precise 12.7 cm incision just above the belly button. Then, moving underneath the breastbone and guided by cameras, the faulty heart was removed and replaced with the help of these robotic arms. All of this happened without any damage to the chest wall. Impressively, the patient was out of the hospital only 1 month later. Since his chest wasn't broken, he experienced a much smoother recovery. Okay, and now some good news for women. Because a quick, pain-free breast imaging system has shown promise in early clinical trials. Breast cancer is the most common form of cancer affecting women. And at the moment, the best way to catch it early is through a technique called mammography. This is when a patient's breast is placed on a support plate and compressed. Then a small concentration of X-rays is released, and this is then analyzed for any signs of cancer. But apparently, this is not very comfortable and can cause a lot of pain. Another problem is that it doesn't work very well for women who have denser breast tissue. But a new technique developed by researchers of the University of Buffalo may have just shown the way forward. The new system is called One-Touch PET. And just like the name suggests, all a patient has to do is to gently press their chest one time against an imaging window. The machine uses a combination of ultrasound and photoacoustic imaging. Both are less affected by tissue density. Ultrasound is used to detect any areas of concern, while the photoacoustic imager is then applied to map out any blood vessel growth around the region of concern. That's because blood vessels grow more in cancerous tissue. The result is an incredibly clear 3D scan that can map out all of the most common types of breast cancer. So far, they've only tried this out on about 65 women. But they're going to expand the trial soon. And we will let you know about any updates. Okay, let's finish the medical good news with a new blood test that predicts multiple sclerosis years before symptoms appear. Multiple sclerosis, or MS, is a truly terrible disease that damages the nervous system. Nerves carry signals between the brain and the body, allowing us to move, feel, and even breathe. And because they are so essential, most nerve fibers are shielded by a protective layer called myelin. Like the sleeve of a t-shirt, this layer wraps around the nerves to provide essential protection. If you have MS, however, the immune system starts attacking this protective layer. This causes permanent damage to the nerves, and with enough time, patients can lose their ability to move. In the last 5 years, studies have proven that MS is triggered by a virus called EBV. If you have EBV, chances are that within the next 5 to 10 years, you will develop MS. And scientists in Austria have used these fresh insights to create a new blood test that can detect MS years before any symptoms appear. It detects something called autoantibodies, which are associated with EBV. These can be identified within 3 years after initial EBV infection. Constantly monitoring these antibody levels with a new test means that later MS diagnosis can be predicted years in advance. And in turn, this allows for more effective management of the disease when it eventually appears. And before we continue, if you're needing a weekly dose of good news, make sure to subscribe. And by the way, thank you for all of these comments. We love reading them and it really keeps us motivated to make more videos. Okay, but now back to the final story of this video. And we are finishing with a good animal story. Because 2 new species of sea slug have been discovered in Asia. Sea slugs are found in oceans worldwide. These colorful sea creatures play a really important role in underwater ecosystems. They feed on algae and seaweed, which stops overgrowth. And they serve as a tasty snack for fish, crabs, and lobsters. A large population of sea slugs lives in what's known as the Coral Triangle, situated in Southeast Asia. This marine paradise is also known as the Amazon of the seas. And that's no exaggeration. It's the largest network of marine protected areas on Earth. And it's home to 76% of all world's coral species, as well as 3/4 of all mollusk species. So it may not come as a surprise that 2 new types of sea slug have just been discovered there. The first one has vibrant strips of orange, black and white. And the second one has a unique set of lumps that look a little bit like sunny side up fried eggs. That's why researchers decided to call it this. Ovata literally means egg-shaped in Latin. Okay, and that's it for today's video. I will be back soon with another dose of good news, and in the meantime, make sure to leave your feedback in the comments below. And if you want to get your data removed from the internet, make sure to try Delete Me with our link in the description to get 20% off. Thanks again to Delete Me for sponsoring this video, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Bye bye!